leads will be why you quit.
100%.
Lack of leads.
Lack of leads, lack of deals.
And we were on a call with Josh yesterday, and he was talking about how he's using that one-click skip trace button on the land portal. And Josh is having tremendous success with that, just calling neighbors around his property. Then we showed him about, calling landlocked properties behind his, because he has the road frontage property, calling landlocked ones behind and getting that for cheap because they're landlocked, and we went into all that.
Everyone knows what a text message is, and these people are sarcastic. They lead you on. You might get 150 responses, 200 responses. How many of those are leads? Probably very, very few. Then you got to figure out of those 200 responses, what are leads? And that is the hardest thing.
You send out $2,000 worth of mail, $1,500 worth of mail. If you can just get one deal out of those that maybe wouldn't have happened, you set yourself apart. Because 100%. One deal in this business is $25,000 to $50,000 of profit. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today's topic, we're talking about getting more leads for your land investing business. I'm your host, Daniel Apke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. It's a huge topic of conversation in the community, just in land in general, and real estate in general. Acquisitions drive your business. So everyone wants the most leads possible. Everyone wants good quality leads, and that's how you close deals. That's how you buy into equity. That's how you make money in this business. Leads is always going to be the number one issue for newer people, I think. It's always going to be the number one, motivating factor of the quote unquote success of their business at the time, the health of their business. And it's just a huge thing to discuss. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, and I think so many people, it's been a hot topic, and you've talked about it quite a bit with quality of leads needs to be like what you're tracking opposed to leads, where so many people, and you said it yesterday in the podcast or whenever that was in the podcast, is if you want the most leads, text, like send 1,000 text messages a day, something like that, and you're going to get a ton of leads, but it's going to be difficult. So I think we can go a couple ways with this episode.
Yeah, and like you said, quality of leads, but another, like the main measure point is converted leads. So it's how many leads are you actually converting into deals. That's what drives the business. It doesn't matter if you get 1,000 leads versus 2 leads, but you convert one of them and you convert no of the 1,000. So it's all about how you're converting leads. But the good thing is there's a lot of solutions for different skill set people. I mean, there's different ways to market and reach out to landowners, anywhere from, texting, cold calling, and mail. Those are the 3 primaries right now.
Yeah, for sure. And they're going to all get you different volume of leads. And I think one of the main things newer people have difficulty with or struggle with, and a lot of it's mental, I think, is the amount or lack thereof leads that you get with mailing. And that's why you need to be so efficient with the way you're talking to these people and taking advantage. We always talk that the cost of a mail lead, it depends on what you qualify it as, is much more expensive than the cost of a texting lead. But that being said, the conversion of a mail lead is going to be way higher. So that, I think, is where one of the number one things that newer people struggle with is the lack of leads, quote unquote, leads for mail.
Yeah, and there's we can get into so much in this episode. I mean, let's talk about the 3 options real quick, just to open up the introduction, I think. So we're going to talk about texting, we're going to talk about cold calling, and we're going to talk about mail. And let's just talk about the differences of leads that you get, and then also just the background of the methods.
For sure. So let's just start with mail, because that's what we do the most of, I think. Mail, the way we do it is sending blind offers. So we're offering someone over a piece of mail, like we want to buy your 5 acres for $10,000, $12,000, whatever the number is. It doesn't matter. And what that does in terms of leads, in terms of sellers, is filters out a ton of people who, whatever, they're offended by our letter, they're mad at our letter, they have no interest in selling. It filters out such a wide variety of people. Sometimes people say, like, does it filter out too many people? Am I too low on my offer price? That's why that offer price is so important. But that is the thing with mail, is it filters out 99% of people, honestly. Like, you get a 1% response rate.
Exactly. And mail is all about the efficiency of it. It's not about the quantity of leads or anything like that. It can be very frustrating, and you can feel very slow because you're not getting a lot of leads. But it is, and it still is, the king in my mind in terms of just the efficiency aspect of it. Now, it depends too, because mail is also the best for bad salespeople. So I obviously don't encourage you to avoid sales in general.
Yeah.
And acquisitions, getting on the phones and being aggressive. But mail is the best for that because there'll be less of that. You'll get more deals with less phone time, less conversations, everything like that. We had Justin on yesterday. He had a really cool thing where he just cold calls people for, mental training to get his, rhythm down, to feel more confident on the phones, that type of stuff. And I always recommend attack your sales. Don't avoid the problem. Go after them first. Go from a D- salesperson to a B. And that's very possible. So I wouldn't choose one of these based on that. But mail is always going to be the slowest in terms of your actual quote unquote leads, depending on what you define them as, but it will be some of the highest in terms of what really matters, which is converted leads.
And we've talked about it before, and I think we still believe it. Like, mail is probably the more risky route. Like, mail is a bigger learning curve because you need to take advantage of all of the leads you get. And that's the important thing. And that's why mail is so efficient. The mail is so efficient because how few leads you get and how qualified the leads are. But it also can be like, if you mess up or you're not answering the phone for these leads, like you're going to struggle to close. You're going to hurt your close rate because you might close 20, 30, 40% of your qualified leads from mail, where with texting, it might be 1%, 2%.
Exactly. And we were on the conversation yesterday, moving from mail to cold calling. We were on a call with Josh yesterday, and he was talking about how he's using that one-click skip trace button on the land portal, on the software of the land portal that replaced DataTree. And Josh is having tremendous success with that, just calling neighbors around his property. Then we showed him about, calling landlocked properties behind his, because he has the road frontage property, calling landlocked ones behind and getting that for cheap because they're landlocked. And we went into all that. That's a type of cold calling. That's more, so with cold calling, there's just the wide cold calling in terms of just shotgunning a whole area. And then there's precision cold calling when you have a property or an area and you want more around that specific one and you're calling your neighbors, you're calling the landlocked ones behind you. I love option number 2. Option number 1's great too, but let's bring this back to leads, because option 2 is very high precision. Sniper. So I think, it's a sniper, and I think you can definitely wrap up some deals. Like, you call 20, 30 people and do that.
100%. An area well enough and you start picking up the phone,
or neighboring properties. Like
you need to be creative with this stuff. Like, it's not a black and white lawyer. Like, you can do this. And some people are like, and Josh is one, he's like, I just want to send mail. I don't want to text. And then he is very, very precise with the way he cold calls. And when he cold calls someone, either they're landlocked and he's cold calling because he has the property with access, so that's easier to get, or he is cold calling because he knows the area so well and he knows what he can sell it for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So he's very sniper approach, and just having those conversations, I think it can add, I don't know, some people, it will add $1 million a year to their profit without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's a good way to get leads. Like, really, like you were talking about leads here. That's a really, really good way to get leads. Like, cold call the properties behind you that don't have access. You have the road frontage. There you go. There's more leads. So simple. Cold call your neighbor properties that are vacant. Simple. The landlocked ones are going to have a higher conversion because it's landlocked property, and landlocked properties are more likely to sell in general. But let's talk about general cold calling. So forget about the neighbors, landlocked properties, all that stuff. General cold calling for getting more leads is great. Getting more leads when you're cold calling are much easier to quantify and decide if you're the one actually cold calling. I'm not even saying a service. There's services that do that. But if you're the one actually cold calling and you're a good cold caller, you will be able to qualify the leads eventually very, very well. And it's somewhere in between mail and texting, I think, because you're on the phone with them. You 100%. Can ask them the specific questions. You can gauge their interest. You can see if they're ready to move forward. You can have, start to finish conversation with them.
Yeah, you can really build that relationship. That's kind of going forward to what we talked about with Justin yesterday, and like the relationship aspect. If you're the first point of contact, like, it might be rough at first in terms of like they might be pissed, they're getting cold called, whatever it is. But like, if you can mediate the situation and just get to the point and just build that relationship, there's so much value in it. And there's so many deals out there that people are getting mail, people are getting text, like it's happening for sure. But there are little tweaks in your business that can scale you up so fast.
Yeah. And cold calling is one that, yes, you'll get a lot of quote unquote leads at first, but if you don't know what you're doing, the leads are not going to be qualified. 100%. It's going to be just like texting as well. But you want more leads. Like Dylan last night on the call again said he bought one deal from a cold calling service and has another in the works that he's buying, or it's entitled, I think, something. So cold calling's been around for so long. It's not like it just doesn't work for certain industries. Like, cold calling's always going to work to an extent, but then it goes from a cold call to a warm call, essentially. So you if you're using someone else, they qualify them, and then it's kind of warm. You already had a touch point with them. So someone else is doing that, cold calling, getting the interest, and then sending them to you, and then it's more of a warm call, and you're not filtering through thousands of them. I need to see how many leads they're getting a day, but I think it's somewhere between like 2 to 5,
Yeah.
something like that, leads a day.
He said he's staying busy. He said he's filling up his leads. It just
Yeah, you take a few days off, you got 20 calls.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's especially bigger deals. Like there's so many different strategies that go in based on what your goal is. Like if your goal is to buy for $20,000, sell for $40,000, mail is probably the best thing. If you're trying to do project-based things, maybe a more sniper approach with a combination of mail and cold calling and texting, honestly. And it just varies what you're doing. Like what we know so well is mail, how it works, the numbers behind it at scale. Like it's not like we get a deal every 2,500 mailers or so. It's not like you're going to send 2,200 mailers, you're guaranteed a deal. Like you might not get a deal your first 6,000 mailers, and I think that's the tough reality that some people have to kind of chill.
Reality.
100%. It's very expensive.
But it takes one deal and you're making 30 grand profit.
100%. And Justin, who we had on yesterday, like he was breaking even barely his first 6 months with one deal.
And then he's also averaging $38,000 of profit.
Yeah. So now he's made $280,000
in the last 4 months. Yeah.
100%. And it's so easy to quit sometimes, I think. But you just need to look internally. I think we need to talk about that more.
Leads will be why you quit.
100%.
Lack of leads.
Lack of leads, lack of deals.
And maybe that's something we should address more because we know how mail works. Like we just know you're going to get deals from mail. You're going to be a very profitable business from it eventually. It's hard at first to overcome the mail cost and everything like that. But these services, I mean, aren't cheap either. If you want to pick up the phone and dial yourself, go for it. That's very difficult to do.
I'm interviewing Deshaun later today, so that'll be on sometime coming up. Deshaun, who cold called his way to sending mail now.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to cold call, get your first deal, you can definitely do it. Or you can hire a cold calling service, which is, $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
So $2,500 a month, 3,500 mailers, 4,000 mailers, which will not guarantee you a deal, but it will get you a deal eventually, and you'll be breaking even off a lot less leads. But that's the reality of it. So cold calling, you're $2,500 a month if you want to outsource it. If you're doing it yourself, obviously it's pretty much free.
Yeah.
Texting, we haven't gotten to texting yet. So far we've done. Did we start with mail?
Talked about mail. Talked about cold calling. Yeah, texting something that like. It's just a high volume of quote unquote leads. And the hardest thing with texting is defining leads because it is over obviously a text message. Everyone knows what a text message is. And these people are sarcastic. They lead you on. They do so many different things. And it's really, really hard. Even for a VA, like you need your systems in place. If you can qualify leads correctly over text, it can be very efficient if you're not the one doing it all. But if you're the one responding to these over 1,000 text messages, you might get 150 responses, like 20%, 200 responses. 20% is not unheard of with just responses. How many of those are leads? Probably very, very few. Then you got to figure out of those 200 responses, what are leads? And that is the hardest thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say like, texting's definitely operationally the hardest in my mind because you're doing the qualifying. Cold calling services will do the qualifying for you, which we didn't touch on services like good versus bad services. Don't expect every service to be the same service. There's going to be very bad services and very good services. So do your due diligence on cold calling services. If you do use one, they're not all equal like anything. So I just want to throw that out there. Texting is all on you though. Your texting's not working. It's on you. Just because you're selecting your county, you're sending the text, you're qualifying your text, and then you're following up with them. Nothing is on someone else. Cold calling, at least the service gives you the lead, so you're not doing as much. That being said, operationally, it's just a lot on your business, especially at first. It's something like you want more leads. It's great. It's just tough.
Yeah. And a lot of people who maybe had a little bit of struggle with mail, like that's what they look to. And then they come back to mail because they're like, this is just too much. I can't it's a lot. If you put time, effort, money, operations into it, it can be a moneymaker. And some people, Matt's done some big deals with texting. A lot of people have done big deals with texting, but you don't realize how much work is behind getting those. Yeah.
And texting, we implemented, and I thought of this idea when we were creating the course, is the follow-up strategy.
Yep.
And the follow-up strategy to mail. So you're following up based on your mail is highly, highly effective. I still really, really believe in that. You sent them mail, boom, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, whatever it is, they get a text saying, hey, did you see my piece of mail? I'm interested in buying your property, whatever that verbiage is that you come up with. But it's just another poke on the same exact person.
100%.
And the more you poke the same person multiple times, the more they're going to think of you when they're ready to sell. And it's just, that's the land flipping business acquisition and sales wise is no different than any other business. Like it's you got to touch people multiple times if you want it highly efficient. We're talking about leads. You want to get leads Not everyone's going to see a piece of paper their first time and want to sell that. You want to keep getting them, catering them, sending them texts, cold calling, this different stuff. And that's especially necessary in saturated markets. I'm not saying you can still send just mail. Justin yesterday made $280,000 off only sending mail. He said he's starting the text, I think. Did he say that?
I think he may be selective cold calling. I don't remember, honestly. I should remember because we just did it yesterday. But yeah, I mean, all of his deals so far have been from mail, but he is very relationship specific. He's doing things a little differently, but it's all blind offers. It's all that stuff. And
so you don't need it is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, he was looking for different strategies after 4 or 5 months, and then it started to click. That's what happens. Like, it clicks at some point, and then like we talked about yesterday with him, like, he's not worried really about mail costs. He's just like, how does he
not worried
scale?
About competition either.
Yeah, he just wants to convert leads. Like, that is his KPI that he looks at, is how many leads is out of the 10 leads he gets, how many is he converting into deals? And that is Justin's number. He doesn't care about really anything else on top of that.
Yeah, and the difference between, just going back real quick, the difference between a mailing lead, a blind offer lead, is they see the number, they have the price, and they're calling you based on that. So if we just define a lead as someone who's interested in defining or in selling their land, if that's the definition, then you're going to get people who want market value. So all of a sudden, out of your 10,000, let's just say 1,000, sudden out of your 1,000 list, you have 50 people that want to sell their land. But they don't know the price. So that's how texting and a lot of cold calling leads work.
What would you define a lead as? Like, in my opinion, I was just thinking about that as you're talking. Like, with us teaching double closing now, it's like anyone who wants to sell at 70% of market value or less is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and it depends the business model. But for what we teach, a lead is someone who wants to sell, who is highly motivated to sell their land and has good land, really.
Yeah.
And by highly motivated, they need.
But you can double close with bad, questionable land.
You can, yes, but it needs to still be decent, obviously. But someone who is highly motivated to sell is the biggest thing, because if they're highly motivated to sell, a lot of times you can get their price. So it's all about their actual motivation. And then the good land comes in kind of second. You can do different things, but I mean at least half decent. We're not selling F land or D land.
Sometimes people will jerk you around and feel like they're not motivated, but they actually are internally. And they'll kind of say, like, I don't need to sell this. So it is hard to define for sure. But within your business, like, especially if you're doing texting, you need to define what a lead is. It's not someone calling and cussing you out necessarily. Like, it's not like you can't ever close those people. Maybe you price at 10% of market value and you can go up to 60. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you need to define in your business what a lead is for sure.
You have to define in your business what a lead is, and you got to get to the point and give them, make sure they're motivated to sell under market value as quick as possible. There are people who will jerk you around. That's with texting for a long time. You're doing due diligence. You give them an offer, and then they're like, oh, you're out of your mind. And you just do that 50 to 100 times. So you'll have to come up with your own process on what you define a lead and how you get to that point of deciding if they're a lead or not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think closing this out, Dan, I just had a thought. You need to define a lead also for your different marketing strategies. Like, a lead needs to be a little bit more defined for mail versus all this other stuff. But at the same time, also, when you're evaluating like what's going on in your business, if you cannot miss leads for mail, especially. Like, you need mail. That's how I see, and we've dove into so many people's businesses, from like their day-to-day, what they're doing, how they're responding to people, how fast they're responding to people, if they're responding to people who don't leave voicemails. And there's so many different things. Like, okay, we're missing leads here. There's no doubt about it. How many of those were deals? And like, that's digging up that part of people's businesses. It's so apparent to why there is kind of a gap in where they are from where they want to be.
Exactly. And if you're not good at sales, I'm going to just call it sales, because we're acquiring a property, we're talking to sellers, we're trying to buy it. It's sales. If you're not good at sales, work on it. Work on it over and over again. Get a sales mentor. It is the biggest pillar. If you just take disposition, sales, do title and everything. If you take everything in this business and all the pillars, it's the most important. It will get you deals that other people can't get. It will get you deals that other people would not have got. You send out $2,000 worth of mail, $1,500 worth of mail. It just takes one deal. If you can just get one deal out of those that maybe wouldn't have happened, or one deal every 10,000 mailers that maybe wouldn't have happened, you set yourself apart, because 100%. One deal in this business is $25,000 to $50,000 of profit.
For sure. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you guys have not already, if you're listening on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, share this with a friend, leave us a review, anything like that. It really helps. Other than that, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.